we were not rule breakers. We were rule makers.
Okay.
Junior had a roller cam. They were not legal. But he had figured out a way to take a flat tappet and put a ball in the bottom of that flat tappet and turned it into a roller cam. And so all these things were okay until I came along. When I came along, I said, hey, can't do that anymore. We had a spacer, just really beautiful piece of work. I don't know who did it. Tapered spacer. No, can't run that anymore. Got to put that away. Everything that had made them special, different, creative, innovative, one by one they took away.
Yeah. Because of you, or
because of me? Look, I had a tough time, and I did it. Look, I did it to myself. I was a smart ass.
You brought heat,
and so when they said you can't do that, I said, why not? Or when they said, well, that's the rule. Well, that's a dumb rule. I'll never forget, I called Bill France one day. I said, Bill, it's some rule change they made. I said, Bill, I'd like to know who the dumbass is that made that rule. He said, you're talking to him. So anyway, I learned the hard way. I'm a life experience.
I called you Jaws for a reason.
Yeah.
It wasn't because you were chewing up the competition.
No.
Kel Yarborough gave you that nickname because of your interviews.
Oh yeah. I was bad to go off.
Did you know you were bad at that? Did you know that was incurring heat on you like it ultimately did? Did you put those things together?
Mm-hmm. I probably did, but I don't think I cared.
I think you tried to use it for your benefit.
Yeah, I did. The media.
He played it up. He worked. He played the role.
All we had was the media. We had the print media. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have TV shows every day. We didn't have any other avenue, any other venue to express ourselves. And so I made sure that I was really, really good friends with all the media guys. Tom Higgins, Steve Wade, any of those guys that wrote, weekly reports or were at the track every week. I was their buddy.
That's astute.
And I was their go-to guy. And you know what? It really made me feel good because it didn't happen a lot, but every now and then Bill France Jr. would come put his arm around me and say, you're my go-to guy on this, whatever the issue might be. You're my go-to guy. And yeah, that's right. I'm your go-to guy. I'm your man. But you know what I love, and Dale knows this. They make rules for everybody. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times those rules don't necessarily fit what you're doing or your situation. But they try to make rules that fits the entire field, not just one little guy.
Yeah.
Not one guy.
One of the things that I heard that Junior and his guys were doing in the Do car was lead shot in the frame rail.
Yeah, that's possible. That's possible.
Yeah.
Well, and look, everything.
I want to explain to Mike what that would mean.
Yeah.
Is so they put lead blocks in the cars to bolt that, and they bolt that in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the car makes weight, and so in some cars, and this is not exclusive to Junior, but back in the early 80s, maybe a lot in the 70s, they would fill the frame with lead shot, and then they would keep the lead shot in there with putty or a soap or anything that could get hot and melt.
Oh yeah.
And then once it came up to temp, or maybe there was a trap door to open or something like that, the lead shot could pour out of the frame, and then the car's hundreds of pounds lighter.
Well, and here was the deal, and everything.
But the lead shot had to go somewhere.
Yeah, they would create situation for they never thought about unintended consequences. So the car, let's just say the car had to weigh 3,700 pounds when it went through tech. So you made sure your car weighed 3,700 pounds when it went through tech. They wouldn't weigh them after the race. I was at Martinsville. I said, they're going through this. I said, hey, ever think about weighing these cars after the race? And Bill Gasaway was the inspector. He said, boy, let me tell you something. When that car goes on the line, it's legal. That's all I care about.
Why would you plant that idea into their head to weigh the cars after the race, being that you were
if they did,
the beneficiary
if they weighed everybody, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I got
the top 5 or whatever, but they wouldn't weigh anybody. And we always knew. We had the lead shot in the frame rail. That's just what we did. if they didn't have scales like they got today. They had grain scales. So you had 4 of them. And they had a place where you drove the car up on, and they weigh all 4 wheels and then push you off. So if they put those scales in the truck, we knew they weren't going to weigh the cars when the race was over with because they done loaded up ready to hit the road for the next race. So that was an invitation to be creative.
Empty the car out.
Be creative.
That's so interesting. I want to, when I was working.
Where did all the lead shot go? Could you see it?
I'll never forget. So
at a place like Martinsville.
Oh yeah, no, let me tell you. No, you'd love this. So Dick Beatty, he liked to walk the racetracks every day because that was his exercise. So I'm walking the racetrack at Martinsville with him one day just for fun. We're walking around the track. He said, DW, something I don't understand. Every week I walk these damn racetracks, I see all these little BBs laying everywhere. He said, I have not figured out where in the hell they come from. So I ain't got a clue, Dick. I don't know. Gosh, that's weird. Wow. Need to look into that.
Yeah.
How long would y'all run that until
when does the lead shot come out?
Yeah.
Lap 1?
Well, you had to be careful. You had to be. Here's look. Okay, so we dropped a little lead every now and then, but everybody did.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go to Martinsville, Martinsville sticks out in my mind. Wayne Thornberry, he worked for Richard. They would take a wagon down to Richard's car. They would take the car cover off of it. They would change out the radio and the helmet and everything else, and that wagon would come back down through there, and he could barely pull it. It was so loaded up with lead and everything else. And so the tires would be, squished down. And so it wasn't like you're the only guy that was smart enough to do it. I mean, there was other ways of heavy helmets, heavy radios, heavy whatever.
Yeah.
But this is pretty cool. So you have a jack stop in the frame rail where you jack the car up. So that's where we let the lead shot out at. And so I had a little wrench, this little T-handle. I'd undo that. I'd back that center of that jack stop out. All the lead shot would go out that hole.
You were the one that
he had to engage the.
You were the one
in the car.
Yeah,
You're like the wizard behind the curtain, sitting there at the controls of the lead shot.
We didn't do it every week. We just did it every now and then. But anyway, so we're at Bristol, and it was under caution. I didn't do it right. So under caution, I backed that screw out. And all of a sudden, all that I guess that lead had gotten wet or something, and it didn't come out.
Oh.
And so I didn't know if it didn't come out or not. I just did what I was supposed to. So we're going in the race, and all of a sudden the damn lid all comes out at one time. And I mean, I'm in third turn. I'm about to spin out. And I finally catch it, and I just shoot down pit road. Well, Dave Marcus was on pit road. So I come down pit road out of control, and they thought Dave Marcus was the one that was dropping the shot. So they're wearing his car out, trying to figure out where it came from. Yeah, they ain't going to find it. So they're looking at all the cars. They got to look at. I won the race. They look at the car. They take the jack. So here's the jack stop. So they put the jack and they jack the car up. So the jack is sitting on the hole.
Yeah, on the trap door.
And they could look for a day. They could look forever. They're never going to find it. The jack has got the hole covered.
They covered the hole. That's awesome.
So and it was a lot of that was. I mean, I know it sounds kind of.
It's great. Yeah. That's what So I mean, I always believe that if your crew chief isn't trying, if that car isn't illegal, then he ain't trying hard enough.
I agree.
And that our job as drivers and crew chiefs and all the mechanics and crafty guys back here, engineers especially these days, it's their job to find holes in that rule book.
Yeah.
Like you say, not break the rules, make new ones.
Yeah.
And it's their job as an industry, as an organization to govern it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there were not a lot of inspectors. I mean, there were 5 or 6 maybe at the most, and they had to look after all the cars, and so some of them were your buddies, and they had to look the other way about certain things. But we literally, the things you've heard, and maybe you haven't heard these, but if we had something on the front of the car that we were trying to get away with, maybe we had cocked the nose or moved the nose or whatever, we would go to the rear of the car and we would do something so blatantly obvious that the inspector would walk by and say, You got to fix that.
We talked about this last week on the show. We talked about this very
You got to
thing.
fix that. Okay. Well, we'll fix it. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it's just like the boxer in the ring that spins one arm and punches you with the other one.
Yeah.
We talked about this very thing. I'm interested because you just said sometimes they'd look the other way. So, certainly I'm not speaking of the way NASCAR would govern the league today. But Junior had a lot of sway.
Yeah.
And he also was very creative and innovative and stuff. Yeah. And so there were things that he could get away with, I would assume, because, the story that I was privy to was because I worked with Jimmy Spencer.
Yeah.
And he was telling about that 1994 season when Jimmy won his only 2 races.
Oh, yeah. Well,
in that car. And I believe he said something like that Junior came up to him and said, you do a way better Junior impersonation than I could, but boy, if you can't win in this car, you need to be bagging groceries or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I believe, if I heard the story right, that NASCAR kind of was on to what they did.
Yeah.
But then they said, don't bring it back.
Yeah.
And they brought it back.
Yeah.
And did one again, and they won again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know Junior told me, I said 94, I guess, when Spencer, and, I love Spencer, but wouldn't say he was the greatest driver I ever saw, but I just pretty, he could be
rough
an adversary sometime, but so they won a couple of races at Daytona and Talladega. I think, I know Daytona for
and
sure.
Talladega, yeah.
And I went up to Junior, I said, Junior, what the hell are y'all doing anyway? He said, boy, we'll win every damn race till they catch us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
But
I've had I love doing this because it kind of brings back memories, some good, some bad. Sure. But the sport today, people just have no idea what it was like when we started to the way it is today. If a guy walked in the shop with a briefcase, we don't even come in here, go somewhere else. Because, it had a briefcase and it had a computer.
Or a laptop,
laptop. We're going to keep laps and tires. And I said, no. We got this handled. You go do something else. We're fine.
Yeah.
And that was really it's probably my downfall.
Did you ever have any nitro in your car?
Once.
Really?
Oh, yeah, one time. Well, when I went to drive for Dygaard in the first year, Donnie and Mario Rossi, they've been running every week.
Nitro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how they qualify pretty good. But
who was it that set on? Was it J.D. McDuffie set on the pole and wrecked his car, and the nitrous fell out of the frame?
It exposed it.
Yeah.
It exposed it in the side of the car.
That's possible. It wasn't that. It wasn't all that unheard of.
Really?
To have a little assistance
shot of nitrous
when you qualified. Yeah. Normally just when you qualified. But I only got that one time I qualified. Like me and AJ Foyt, I think I was on pole, he was outside, or vice versa, I don't remember which. And neither one of us had run worth a damn all day long. Like we're 25th in practice, but we end up qualifying on the front row. And so it's kind of like, what did y'all do? I'll never forget, we take that car in there, and Rossi was the crew chief, and he had put the nitrous bottle in the petty bar. So it's about that long, and it's mounted and covered up in the roll cage. And all I had to do is stick a little wrench in there and open that baby up, and that thing would take off. I mean, I'd never done it before, so I was excited about, wonder what this is going to do. It wake that baby up, I'm telling you.
What did it feel like?
Oh, it took off like a rocket.
It put you back in the seat?
Oh, I don't know that, at Daytona, you didn't necessarily feel it, but you could tell it was going, because you've been turning 7,000, now you're turning 7,500. I mean, good grief.
When would you do? Walk me through the process then. When exactly would you do this?
On the straightaway. I mean,
Yeah.
While you're running?
Oh, yeah.
While you're in
like you'd go out of the pits and get up on the bank and start down the bank. You had this little wrench. You had it between you, take that little wrench, reach it up in the slot, and that thing go, and it'd take off. I mean,
that's awesome.
It'd go crazy.
You're doing that while you're driving at speed.
Up to speed qualifying.
Oh,
I mean,
right, still. Yeah. Can you imagine how many people wadded up just to what were you doing?
No,
well, I mean, I had to wrench that thing. I mean, you got to open it up.
I was pretty busy in my race car for a lot. When we go through tech, your right side had to weigh so much. So we'd have a block of Mallory that was bolted to the frame on the right side to make the right side weight be right. So when we get ready to then put me in the car, they'd undo that. They'd give me a piece of just tube, and they'd put the tube where the where the Mallory was, and I'd take the Mallory and put it over on the left side to get the left side weight up. So it's just.
I bet the worst.
But listen, this sounds really bad, I know, but it's not, because there wasn't a lot of people around to watch. To take. I had a helmet. It weighed 50 pounds. I never wore it. But it hung in the car. I had a radio. I'll never forget this. We're at Charlotte, and Dick Beatty, and he comes. Me and Rusty and Dale and all. We're sitting there talking one day, and he walks up. And he's got this radio right here, and I said, "Dick, is there something wrong with your radio?" And he goes, wham! He throws that damn piece of Mallory down. It's weighed about 50 pounds. He said, "It ain't my damn radio." He said, "You want to know where we got it?" I said, "I think I know."
I was going to say, I bet the worst day of your life was when they introduced in-car cameras. That would have changed the game for a lot of people.
Yeah, you just hard to get away with stuff like that now.
Yeah.
The playing field has been leveled.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it truly is.
Nowhere to hide things, hardly, is there?
No.